Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right in today with some really insightful analysis into a topic that affects, well, pretty much all of us. We're taking a deep, honest look at the root causes of digital burnout. Trying to figure out exactly why modern internet culture breeds so much exhaustion and loneliness. I mean, think about it. We're living in literally the most connected time in human history. We can talk to anyone, watch anything, learn anything. That was the promise, right? But the data points to something else entirely. It points to the silent crisis of a connected generation. So we really have to ask this massive question. Why does this generation feel so lost? Why is everyone feeling more anxious, more drained, and just more emotionally empty, even after scrolling for hours? And look, this isn't about just shaking our fists at smartphones and blaming technology. It's about bringing some insightful analysis to a really heavy feeling that millions of people are dealing with every single day, but almost nobody actually talks about out loud. And right here, this perfectly captures the core paradox of the digital age. On one side, we have the promise, total connection, unlimited knowledge at our fingertips. But then you look at the reality. The emotional reality is that we feel profoundly isolated, super anxious, and just flat out exhausted. It's like we're living in this weird world where everyone's pretending to be totally fine, but underneath all the trending audios and perfectly curated highlight reels, a huge number of people are silently struggling to even know who they are anymore. All right, so let's dive right into section 1, the connection paradox and the crisis of identity. Now let's look at this generational shift because it's a real game changer. Previous generations, they were mostly focused on pure physical survival, putting food on the table, keeping a roof over their heads. But today's generation, the focus has completely flipped. The crisis now is entirely about identity. It's this constant loop of who am I? Am I successful enough? Am I attractive enough? Productive enough? The pressure to, quote unquote, become someone has literally never been heavier. And that anxiety, it just accelerates because we're constantly comparing our messy, behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel. Just think about it. For the first time in human history, we carry a little device in our pockets that constantly reminds us of everything we aren't. Every single time you scroll, boom, someone is richer. Boom, someone is fitter, more successful, more disciplined, more attractive, more talented. It's this impossible rapid-fire standard of comparison, and it's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No wonder imposter syndrome is spreading like wildfire. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful quote from the source material. People are no longer just living life. They are managing an image of life. Life slowly stops feeling personal, It starts feeling like a performance. And honestly, the scariest part is that most of us don't even realize we're doing it. We're just totally caught up in putting on the show. Okay, moving on to section 2, never-ending information overload. Look at this list. Bad news, wild success stories, toxic arguments, politics, crazy beauty standards, random relationship advice. All in the span of what, maybe 60 seconds of scrolling? Human beings were absolutely not designed to absorb this kind of rapid-fire information. It's basically a fire hose of dopamine and fear being blasted straight into our brains. Your mind literally never gets a chance to just rest. And when your brain is that overloaded, you hit what experts call a loss of emotional clarity. You've probably felt this. It's that feeling when you say, I honestly don't even know how I feel right now. And here's the thing, that is not a sign of weakness. Actually, scratch that. It's not a flaw at all. It's just a direct symptom of having zero mental downtime. Modern life just doesn't give us enough absolute silence to sit down and understand our own box. Which leads us perfectly into section 3, lonely in a crowd. This breakdown right here is absolutely fascinating. Look at the massive gap between the loud, busy digital facade and the quiet emotional reality. On the surface, we've got group chats popping off, hundreds of followers, constant notifications. But the reality? People are deeply, deeply lonely. They have all these likes, but zero real emotional honesty. Everyone is posting these winning, happy stories while secretly being absolutely terrified to show any actual weakness. We're chatting all day long online, but rarely ever feeling truly understood. Everyone wants to look so strong and relentlessly happy online, even when they're running on completely empty behind the screen. And, well, of course they do, because modern internet culture literally rewards appearance more than vulnerability. The algorithms, they push the confident, the winning, the aesthetically perfect. They definitely don't reward the raw, the exhausted, or the confused. Let's look at how this builds into section 4, the race against time. Social media completely visually magnifies this totally arbitrary, made-up timeline. You're supposed to know your exact life purpose by 20, become wildly successful by 25, and have literally everything figured out by 30. It's ridiculous, right? But because it's constantly reinforced by every viral success story pushed to our feeds, the pressure feels incredibly physically real. It forces people to watch strangers hit these absurd milestones while privately questioning their own lives. So, under all that suffocating pressure, the perception of life completely changes. It goes from being this unique, personal journey of discovery, and it morphs into this exhausting, invisible race. And it's a race where the finish line keeps moving. The rules don't make sense, and honestly, it's a race that nobody actually understands why they're even running. So, how do we fix this? That brings us to our final section, Section 5, Finding Silence and Honesty. I absolutely love this quote from the source material, and I think it's the ultimate antidote to all this digital burnout. Maybe this generation does not need more content. Maybe it needs more honesty. We don't need another 10-step productivity hack. We don't need another lifestyle influencer to follow or another app to optimize our habits. What we actually need is the bravery to just admit, hey, all of this is incredibly overwhelming. We need a massive reframing of what modern burnout actually is. Look at what the human mind actually needs to function. Real conversations, emotional awareness, true, uninterrupted silence, deeper meaning. People aren't exhausted because they're lazy. They're exhausted because they are profoundly emotionally starved from years of neglecting these core human needs. So many folks feel lost just because nobody ever taught them how to slow down enough to actually hear their own thoughts. At the end of the day, the biggest takeaway here is deep empathy. This generation is not broken. For sure, it is not broken. But it is overwhelmed. Behind all the perfectly edited pictures, the constant uploads, the curated achievements, people are just silently trying to survive emotionally. And just acknowledging that reality, that is absolutely the vital first step to getting out of the dark. So it all comes down to this one question. Are you ready to take that first step and finally be honest about feeling kind of lost? Breaking that silence is really the only way we stop running this bizarre race that nobody even understands. The real crisis isn't the smartphone itself. It's the total silence surrounding how the smartphone actually makes us feel. Being honest is exactly how we start finding our way back to ourselves. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Where silence becomes a story. When we finally stop pretending everything is fine, our silence can become a real story of healing and genuine connection. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and hey, try to carve out a little bit of true silence for yourself today. Catch you next time.